The Employee Information section allows you to add, view, and edit employee information. In this section, you can also add new employees. To access employee information, go to the main menu on Payentry and click on Employee Information. You will now see a listing of your employees. You can filter by all or active employees. The Active Employees filter only shows your current employees and does not include terminated employees. You also have several sorting options for this list, including name, ID, and department. Let's add an employee by clicking on the New Employee link. Click New Employee. First, let's add the employee's basic information. Now that we've entered the employee's basic information, let's set up the employee's hire date and department. Enter the hire date and select the appropriate department. If you are a large employer based on the guidelines of the Affordable Care Act, you'll also want to set up the employee's ACA status. Select the appropriate status. If you are considered a small employer, this is an optional field for you. Now, enter the employee's rate information. If the employee is hourly, enter their hourly rate. The default hours field is optional. Use this field for hourly employees who you would like to be on autopay. If you'd like the employee to receive those default hours automatically, click on the button next to hours to set them up on autopay. If the employee is on salary, enter their per pay period salary in the appropriate box. And if you'd like them set up on autopay, click on the bubble next to salary. If you'd also like to record hours for the salary employee as well as dollars, you can use the default hours field. Now let's set up the employee's taxes. Make sure that you select the appropriate tax form. Select Tax Form W-2 for a W-2 employee. Select 1099-M for a 1099 independent contractor. If you operate in multiple states, remember to change the state under the state tax and SUI tax. We'll leave the state tax and SUI tax in Virginia since this employee lives and works in Virginia. Now let's scroll down to the federal tax and state tax details. Use these sections to input the employee's filing status and number of exemptions. Once you've entered all of the information, click Add Employee. Now we're on the new employee's profile that we just added, Benjamin Doe. We can navigate between employees by clicking on the drop-down button. Let's look at George Smith's profile. Now let's look at some of the tabs in employee information. You'll see the tabs are in blue. First, let's start with the Demographics tab. This tab contains the employee's name and address, along with a few other pieces of demographic data. You may change an employee's address, add additional contact information, and insert other data as necessary. If you've made any changes, click Save Changes. Now let's look at the Department Position tab. This tab shows the employee's home department, status, and position. You can make changes to the employee's department and location. You'll also want to go to this tab if the employee is terminated. To change the employee from active to terminated, select Terminated and enter the term date. Since George is still active, I'll change him back to active. If you rehire an employee, simply change their status from terminated back to active and enter their rehire date in the appropriate box. Anytime you rehire an employee, make sure you click the Re-Report button. This will re-report the employee to the state agencies. You can also adjust the employee's position information, such as the employee supervisor and title. If you've made any changes, click Save Changes. Next, let's look at the Miscellaneous tab. This tab contains a variety of employee information fields used for a number of purposes. The Memo field can be used to input reminder notes that can be viewed during the payroll process. Type in a note for that specific employee and click Show Memo in Payentry. This memo will show up when you're entering payroll for George Smith. If you've made any changes, click Save Changes. Now let's look at the Reviews tab. The Reviews tab allows you to track employee review information, such as the reviewer, the rating, and the next review date. Again, if you've made any changes, click Save Changes. The Dependents tab allows you to enter the employee's dependents. This tab is for informational purposes only and includes such items as name, relationship to employee, telephone number, and date of birth. The Education tab is used to store the employee's education information, such as the school, years attended, degree, and grade point average. You can use the Emergency Contacts tab to keep track of the employee's emergency contacts. You can enter the emergency contact name, relationship to the employee, home and work phone. You can also keep track of events using the Events tab. You can click on the drop-down button to select the event, enter a description, a date, and a next date. You'll see here that we've entered some events such as office party, seminar, and quarterly training session. Again, if you've made any changes, click Save Changes. You can track the employee's previous employers and the dates of their employment. Next, let's look at the Skills tab. To select a skill, click on the drop-down button and select the skill. You can also enter a description and the date that that employee received that skill set. Next, let's look at the ACA tab. You can keep track of the employee's Affordable Care Act status using this tab. Use the drop-down button to select their status. Click Add and Save Changes to add that status. You'll see here that George Smith is set up with a full-time ACA status. Now let's move on to the Rates tab. This is where the employee pay rate information is stored. This tab is also your historical lookup tool, so it's recommended that when an employee receives a raise to enter a brand new rate code and a start date. That way you can keep track of their pay rate history. You'll see here that George Smith received a raise in May of 2013. And we can also look at his rate of pay before May 10th of 2013. Now let's look at the AutoPays tab. You can see that this employee is set up on salary AutoPay for $1,500 per pay period. If an employee is changing from salary to hourly, you can also go to this tab to stop their AutoPay. If you do not want the employee on AutoPay, select None and click Save Changes. The AutoPay section also shows the employee's calculated annual salary. For George, his annual salary is $39,000. You can also set up employee AutoPays, such as a mileage reimbursement. You'll see here we've set up a mileage reimbursement of $30 per payroll for George. This is a reimbursement he's to receive every payroll. You can select employee AutoPay codes by clicking on the drop-down button and selecting the appropriate code. Now let's look at the Fringe tab. You can set up recurring additional employee earnings, such as a car allowance, group term life, or 401k match in the Fringe section. When you set up a Fringe payment on this tab, it's a payment that's considered a recurring earning. Here we've set up a Fringe earnings code of Other for George, and he'll receive $75 whenever he's paid. Now let's look at the Deductions tab. You'll see here that we have this employee set up with a 401k deduction, pre-tax dental deduction, and pre-tax health deduction. To select a deduction code, click on the drop-down button and select the deduction code. Enter the rate or amount and click Save Changes. Now let's look at the Direct Deposit tab. You can set up one or more direct deposits for your employee in this section. If the employee only has one direct deposit, use a priority of 99. If the employee has multiple direct deposits, start with a priority number of 1 for the first direct deposit, use a priority of 2 for the second direct deposit, and for the last direct deposit, use a priority of 99. The priority number indicates what order to send the direct deposits. So for this employee, $500 will be sent to an account ending in 4321. The last transaction to occur with a priority of 99 will be 100% of the remaining pay, and it will be sent to a checking account ending in 2345. Let's go ahead and set up a third direct deposit account. Since we have priority 1 and priority 99 set up, we'll use priority number 2, and this will be the second transaction that will occur. Enter the ABA transit number, which is also known as the routing number. Now enter the account number. Make sure you have a copy of the employee's voided check to enter the transit and account numbers. Now select whether the account is a checking or savings account. If it's a checking account, check the box. If it's a savings account, do not check the box. Now select whether you would like to send a flat amount or a percentage to the employee's account. So we can send a flat amount of $100, or we could send a percentage, such as 50%. You can leave the pre-note date blank and allow the start date to populate automatically. Click Add and Save Changes. Now let's go to the Taxes tab. You can make changes to your employee's tax details here. You can change the filing status as well as the exemptions. Make sure to click Save Changes if you've made any changes. You can also track an employee's accruals through the Accruals tab. Here you'll see that we have personal, sick, and vacation accruals set up for this employee. To select the accrual code, click on the drop-down button and select the code. You can then enter the available hours and the used hours, if any. When the employee is paid under these codes, such as personal, sick, or vacation, the system will deduct those hours from the employee's available hours balance. If you've made any changes, click Save Changes. Now let's look at the Labor Allocation tab. You can allocate an employee's labor here. You'll see that this employee is set up to have 20% of their pay under Department 4 Operations. 80% of the employee's pay is allocated to Department 3, which is an IT department in Roanoke. Now let's click on the Pay History tab. We can view the employee's earnings history here. You'll see the various check dates and wage amounts here. Any check processed on Payentry for an employee is viewable in this tab. The paycheck history is displayed in reverse chronological order, with the most recent entries displayed at the top of the list. If you'd like to review a specific pay stub, click on Details and click Return to Employee to return back to the employee. You'll also see at the bottom of the screen a Totals section, which includes the employee's year-to-date earnings. You'll see that it reads totals for period 1/1/2015 through 12/31/2015. Now let's look at the next tab, which is 401k. In this tab, you can keep track of the employee's status and eligibility. This tab is for 401k census reports only, and it has no effect on the employee's 401k withholding or employer match calculation. Finally, let's look at the Insurance tab. You can keep track of an employee's insurance policies here. You'll see that this employee has insurance policies with Anthem and Blue Cross Blue Shield. You can enter the start and end dates of the plans, as well as the plan type. If you've made any changes, click Save Changes. We've now viewed all the tabs and employee information. To return to the main menu, click Main Menu.